Hello. I thought that I would do a quick, unscripted critique of a recent inspiring philosophy short put out there by Michael Jones. The short concerns Christy, who I think is an atheist who began on TikTok. She got very popular on TikTok, and now she has moved over to YouTube somewhat and has begun to do longer form videos. So let's play this short by Michael Jones. The short concerns: does the Bible commend blind faith? I argue that it does. Christy argues that it does. And we shall just see what inspiring philosophy thinks about this.
Over and over again, people in the Bible are rewarded for blind obedience, for blind.
Time and time again, people in the Bible are commended for blind obedience and blind faith. And the word blind can kind of mean two things. It can mean unseen. So blind faith would be faith in something unseen or unevidenced or undetected. So that's one meaning of the word blind. But there is another meaning of the word blind: unconditional. So when God told Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, he did it without question. He never Socratically inquired of the deity, what is the reason for this? Even though when it came to Sodom and Gomorrah, he did try to Socratically reason with the deity, are you really going to destroy an entire city? And God says, yes, but what if there are 100 just men there? God said, I won't destroy the city. And Abraham continues to question God about the ethics of destroying the city of Sodom. God does not do this when it comes to Isaac. God tells Abraham to murder in a gruesome ritual his son Isaac, and Abraham obeys straight away. So that's another meaning of the word blind. So let us keep these two meanings of the word blind in mind. Blind faith, faith in something unseen, unevidenced, or undetected. And another meaning of the word blind, which means unconditional, straight away, immediate, unthinking obedience. And I think it's true that the Bible does commend this sort of blind faith and blind obedience.
Faith.
Where?
I can't believe that inspiring philosophy, in all sincerity, asks this question. I like to define the word obtuse as deliberate stupidity. That's how I like to define the word obtuse. And Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy, I think he's willing to be brain dead for Jesus, brain dead for the faith. That is how obtuse he's willing to be. Where? The Abraham and Isaac story. That's blind obedience to murder, filicide, human sacrifice. and he's going to ask for Bible references. So let us allow him to do this before we crack open the Bible. I have some Bible Hub.
Welcome to Inspiring Philosophy.
Over and over again, people in the Bible are rewarded for blind obedience.
I'm sorry about that. My mouse has buttons on the side, and I accidentally clicked one of them. So Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy here is going to ask us to just point out verses in the Bible that commend blind faith or blind obedience, blind deference. This is, we need to keep this meaning in mind as well.
Just point to verses where people are commended for having faith. I want verses where people are commended for having blind faith.
Okay, so Michael Jones wants verses in which people are commended for having blind faith. So let us, and remember the dual sense of blind. So let us go firstly to, let us first go to Hebrews, this notorious verse from Hebrews. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So remember when I defined blind faith, I said that blind faith is faith in things that are not seen, not evidenced, not detectable in any way. And the Christian pantheon and all its angels and devils and invisible things, not only can they not be seen, they cannot be heard, they cannot be smelt, they cannot be tasted, they cannot be touched. We cannot build any sort of scientific instrument to detect any of the supernatural beings at the heart of the core propositions of Christianity. So the author of Hebrews, traditionally Paul, says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for. So faith is the substance. I mean, St. Paul is trying to say that having faith in God is the same thing as possessing and having God, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So just faith itself is the evidence of the things that you're having faith in. So you have this kind of vicious circularity of faith. This is a notorious verse of the Bible. And Jerry Coyne turned this verse on its head. Science is the substance of things tested or otherwise observed, the evidence of things, whether we want them to be true or not. That's how Jerry Coyne defines science in the broad sense being academic, systematized knowledge. And here's another one. Then Jesus, we'll go to the King James because it's not copyrighted. The NIV is copyrighted by Zondervan. Jesus saith unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet believed. So here is Jesus commending blind faith. The people who have not seen his resurrection, have not touched his holes with their fingers. Jesus is commending them. They are blessed, not you, Thomas, for asking for evidence, for asking for me to show myself to you. No, that the ones who are to be commended are those who have not seen and yet believed. Blind obedience. Here Jesus says, "And why call ye me Lord, Lord, and do not do the things which I say?" Now the word Lord here, the Lord owns everything on his estate, even the people. That's why we call the biblical God Lord, because we are his serfs. The word serf comes from the Latin word servus, or in ecclesiastical Latin, servus. Servus became serve and then serf. So the reason why we call the biblical God Lord is because we are his slaves, we are his property, because the Lord owns everything on the estate. And in the Hebrew Bible, the word for Lord is Banal, or Baal, which means Lord or owner. We can translate Banal or Baal as owner. And this is why in Israel, the word Baal for husband is a bit controversial. There are some feminists who refuse to use it because it can mean owner. They prefer the word ish, which just means man, but it can mean husband. So, and the Greek word for this is kurios, and kurios can also mean owner. So Jesus is saying here, "And why call ye me owner, and do not the things which I say?" So he's looking here for blind obedience. Whenever a lord or a master or a owner issues a command to a slave, then that slave must obey unquestioningly and immediately. So this is blind obedience being sought after by Jesus here. And I just wanted another damning verse. It's this verse. Come down to the King James Bible because its copyright is never enforced. The King James Bible actually is copyrighted. It's copyrighted by the British royal family, but that they don't enforce the copyright. And said, "Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven." Little children obey immediately and without question, otherwise they will be corporally punished by their parents. In the savage past in which this was written, indeed, in the savage past in which this was written, a disobedient child could be stoned to death for not being obedient to his parents. And I think that Jesus even comes out and, he remonstrates with the Pharisees for not actually putting disobedient children to death. And so there's more blind faith. You tell a child that the tooth fairy exists. Does he look for evidence? Does he look to see the tooth fairy? No, he just blindly believes in it. You tell a child that Santa Claus exists. Does he look to see Santa Claus? Does he look to feel Santa Claus? Does he look for evidence for Santa Claus? No, he just believes it. Why? Because he's a child. And so there's more blind faith commended by Jesus. And
Even Hebrews 11 points out that Abraham placed his faith in God after he had used his reasoning capabilities.
But yes, this is what Hebrews says. This isn't what the book of Genesis says. This is another annoying thing that inspiring philosophy does. The Hebrew religion, it evolved. Like the New Testament religion isn't as bad in some respects as the religion found in the earliest portions of the Hebrew Bible. For one thing, they wanted skeptics and philosophers. The New Testament is pitched towards Greeks, so I mean, it doesn't matter what Hebrews says. I mean, the author of Hebrews is writing about what 700-800 years after the book of Genesis was written. Whatever the author, we'll just call him Paul for convenience. Whatever Paul's interpretation of the book of Genesis is relevant because it was written 800 years late. You know, it's irrelevant what the author of Hebrews thinks about the book of Genesis.
Think about the Garden of Eden. Think about the tree of knowledge. God didn't want them eating from the tree of knowledge.
No, God didn't want them eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God had already placed Adam in a priestly position in the garden.
And here is inspiring philosophy importing his wild theological notions into the text. Adam was given a priestly role in Genesis. Where does it say that in the text? Where does it say that Adam was a Cohen, a priest? I don't think it says. I haven't read the entire Old Testament, but maybe it does, but it doesn't seem to be referenced here. I mean, what's being referenced here is Adam calling the species by name, which is an impossible task, by the way. I mean, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work and keep it. How does this say that Adam was a priest? Or that gardening is a priestly activity? I mean, he's getting all this stuff from the PhD theologians that he's reading. But I mean, these PhD theologians are really wacky, in my opinion. If you want to, you should really listen to what Richard C. Miller says about all of these PhD Bible scholars. I mean, the field biblical studies is a field in crisis. It should eventually one day be wound up completely and merged with the classics department and the ancient history department. I think that's Richard C. Miller's solution. Because, okay, we'll continue on.
And given them tasks to care for the garden and name the animals. Both.
And I mean, the funny thing is that inspiring philosophy, he's not a young earth creationist, so this didn't happen in any appreciable way. This is why I say, I mean, I think inspiring philosophy only gives lip service to not being a creationist, because I mean, we know from science, we know even from evangelical theologians. Francis Collins, he's a scientist, but he says there never was just two people. I mean, there never just was two human beings on Earth, so that there never was an Adam or an Eve. So this stuff in Genesis is just pure fiction and pure mythology.
Both of which would have required knowledge. There's a lot of debate about what's going on with the tree in Genesis.
This is how inspiring philosophy obfuscates. There's a lot of debate. Serious scholars have no debate about this. Serious scholars say that this is ancient mythology. That's it. There's no debate. When he says there's serious debate in scholarship, what he means is that in evangelical and fundamentalist scholarship, there are different ways of spinning these ridiculous mythological and fictitious stories.
Genesis 3. But it seems too simplistic to say.
And there's another tactic of the sophisticated apologist. If you believe that a text means what it says, that is simplistic or that is fundamentalist. It's just another dishonest apologetic tactic.
The chapter is just about God not wanting humans to have knowledge. See this video I made where I give a more scholarly approach.
By scholarly, it means that he uses selection bias to sift through evangelical and fundamentalist scholarship to find something that he likes, to find something within this corpus of evangelical, fundamentalist, sometimes even conservative Catholic scholarship, find something in there that corresponds with his wild notions, and then he calls that scholarly.
Over and over again, people in the Bible are
Okay, so I think that's it over. I don't want to go on too long because I have a capacity to ramble, so I'll just wrap it up. Okay.